How is it going, everyone? We've got some notable PlayStation news to talk about in this video, particularly something that's got social media ablaze, as far as some points made by Financial Times, according to interviews with more than 10 of Sony's top game executives, and what they are looking to do and get out of their first-party studios going forward. I'll try to make some sense out of the statement, since I think people are jumping a little bit too much to conclusions, but at the same time, you gotta look at Sony's outlook in the position, and I'm not saying you have to agree with what they do, but with what they do, even with something like Concord, I can at least rationalize why they are doing the things that they are doing. So we'll talk about that. First of all, Sony is seeking to ensure that its first-party studios, 20 standalone groups, which that sounds like a lot, but I'm sure there are like some smaller groups in there that you don't really think about a lot, but those groups that make games exclusively for its PlayStation console contribute more to overall revenue growth and take measured risks, all without squashing the independence each studio demands to produce hits. According to interviews with more than 10 of Sony's top games executives, designers, and studio founders, the company is trying to balance creation and control in a business that is central to the Tokyo-based group's strategy. Sony is seeking to ensure that its first-party studios, the groups that make games exclusively for its PlayStation console, which take that exclusively kind of out the window at this point, because a lot of that stuff's coming to PC, and that's one of the big contributing factors to increase overall revenue growth, which is their goal, and take measured risks, all without squashing the independence each studio demands to produce hits. I don't want teams to always play it safe, but I would like for us all, when we fail, to fail early and cheaply, said Herman Hulse, chief executive of studio business at Sony Interactive Entertainment, which handles the PlayStation brand. What that tells me is they don't want a situation like Concord, where they've spent all this money developing the game, getting the game out the door, spending money on marketing, and then ultimately shutting down the game and making literally no money on it. I think they want to avoid that, and I think what that tells me is they're not going to stop with the live service games. I still think they view that as their ultimate goal for the big gravy train, and we know that every publisher is desperate to get that gravy train going and to get multiple of those gravy trains going. Whether or not that be feasible, that's another question entirely. And I think desperately chasing that gravy train has its own issues, but you have to look at it from Sony's vantage point, and I get it. You can meme on them all you want about the talk that Concord was gonna be, you know, the next Star Wars. That was Sony being, like, incredibly out of touch. If that is a real thing, which, you know, you have to think about where the world was at in 2020 and 2021, and if a bunch of executives got together in a meeting in 2020, 2021, 2022, just remember where the world was. It was different than what it is now. I can totally see them looking at Concord and be like, oh my god, we are cooking with gas. These are characters that are really gonna resonate with the modern audience, and they're gonna emotionally feel for them. Tell me that you can't see that happening. Yes, you might now look at that in retrospect and be like, wow, they were so out of touch, and I wouldn't have gone that far. I think, you know, thinking that something resonates with the modern audience always is going to pose a lot of different problems, because how do you define the modern audience as this one unified entity? You can't. They're all different people. That's always the inherent problem with doing games like this, that it's going to inherently segment a large portion of your audience, but nonetheless, I can at least see where they're coming from. And with the live service push, I always go back to it. First party offered Sony something, and the goal of first party is, yes, you make these games, they sell a lot of copy, you make some money off of them. But the real goal of the first party games is to offer you value into joining the PlayStation ecosystem, where then they could make a lot of money on you passively. The need for that is still there. It's just not there as much. It's not there as much as it was in the PS3 days. And some people would say, hey, why did they have all this emphasis in the PS4 then on first party? Guys, they were just coming off the heels of the PS3, you know, having a very contentious war, so to speak, with the Xbox 360. Obviously, they're gonna go all in. Mind you, a lot of the games coming out in the PS4 era got greenlit in 2013, 2014, where they were still in the midst of all of this and they needed to offer value. The necessity to offer value for the PlayStation 5 console isn't as much as it used to be. If you want to buy a console, the PlayStation console is probably what you're going to end up buying. I think it's a problem to rest on your laurels a little bit too much. and that could pose a problem. But I can, again, with all of this, I can understand where Sony is coming from, where they want to do all of these live service games. I absolutely can see, because those live service games at least offer you an opportunity to create more revenue streams and more revenue ecosystems within that ecosystem. Whereas those games, like a Yote, it's gonna do well. It ultimately has kind of a ceiling, a soft ceiling, as far as just how well and how much money they're gonna make on it. The majority of games that PlayStation could buy that I want have that kind of soft ceiling. Whether that be a new God of War, whether it be a Ghost Title, whether it be Horizon 3, whether it be something like Gravity Rush, ultimately they have a bit of a soft ceiling. With a live service game, the ceiling, but the potential actually being realized. Yes, it was realized with Helldivers 2, but the issue with the live service games is that they're fighting for your time, and it's going to be the top live service games make so much money. Yes, the NBAs of the world, the Call of Duties of the world. I think the Battlefield is going to join that category, and those are $70 games, but Marvel Rivals is a free-to-play title. They're going to make a lot of money, and then there's going to be so many that ultimately fail, and I do think it would be better at this stage of the game for Sony to retain some value for their PlayStation ecosystem, create more value, even though that value creation, that value proposition isn't necessary right now. I still think it much better serves them to have that value on board, because there's gonna be another generation. There's gonna be a generation after that. You want to keep that audience that's been with PlayStation for so long, and maybe you're of the mindset, and I can totally see them thinking this way as well. We got these people. They're never gonna leave us, and that's where I think you're taking those people for granted. And yes, a portion of them never will leave you. They're invested too much in that ecosystem. I think when it gets to a point when you're offering them very little value, they will ultimately leave. Now, to be fair, they've had some L years. I think 2024 was a rather weak year. 2025, you know, they published Stranding 2. They've got Yote coming out. 2026, I think, offers an opportunity for them to have a real bounce back year. And I'm not saying it's going to be the greatest year of all time, but if next year we get Soros, if we get Marvel Tokon, if we actually get Wolverine, I'm not saying that's a blowaway year. I'm not saying that's, you know, 2009 first party, which I always look back at 2009 as just an insane year for PlayStation first party. But I think it would at least be serviceable, and I think you would be offering value. I don't think it's all gone. I think some people, you know, want to completely shout from the rooftops that it's all over. I've said it before. We're gonna have some quiet years, and I think 2024, quiet year. 2023, again, one game in 23 with Spider-Man 2. 25, one major first-party game, you know, not a second-party game like Stranding 2, but one major first-party game in Yote. Hopefully next year, we can go back to at least the 2-a-year output. I would like to see 2 major first-party games a year, and if we can get Soros and Wolverine next year, that would be 2 major first-party games. Whatever, that's at least enough, and then round it out with some smaller games, and I think we're cooking with that. What I just tell you guys is even though I might disagree with it, the venture into the Concords of the world and all of these live service games that they canceled, it's easy to see why they went that direction, and ultimately, if they want to continue going down the live service direction, you gotta cancel these games while you're ahead. You should be able to figure it out, and that's one of the issues with the live service model. The live service model is hinging on a lot of data study with what the current audience is gravitating towards. You can do all the data studying in the world. The reality is the world moves pretty fast, and game development takes 5 to 7 years, so the world, if you do all the data study now, the game development cycle is 5 to 7 years. When the game's ready to come out, that's going to be inherently an issue with the live service model and completely, continually chasing that bag. Where, you know, a Helldivers 2, the live service model worked in towards what Arrowhead was already working on. It's still a Helldivers. The essence of Arrowhead is there, whereas I think the chasing of that live service bag so desperately, that's an inherent problem of its own right. But I can see, again, why they are doing it. I think anybody can see that, and I think it's because they view a lot of these games that I prefer, whether it be doing a Gravity Rush 3, whether it be the games that are going to come out like a Yote, them having that kind of soft ceiling to them, where you're only going to make that money for that one shot. You can port it to PC, you can add it to PS Plus Extra to get a little bit more value, but you're not going to make that passive revenue off of Yote. You're not going to make that passive revenue off of a hypothetical Gravity Rush 3. you had the potential to make the passive revenue off Concord, and I think that becomes a much more enticing proposition for them when they also already have such a stranglehold on the console landscape as far as Xbox versus PlayStation goes. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. I know it's a bit all over the place, but I think from their vantage point, they're going to continue with the live service push. It's just making sure it's not a Concord situation where the game's literally out the door and then it gets canceled and shut down. I think, if you were asking me, I think Fair Game should just be canceled. That game has been delayed. The initial trailer we saw was just an atrocity. Again, I question how things like that get greenlit. Like, I don't know who's doing the greenlighting for that and who's in these rooms that are like, oh man, this trailer is gonna be so insane. Let's open up our showcase with a Fair Game trailer. It's like, bro, what are we doing here? And the Concord trailer, it's just, again, at that point, I just have to question, like, why? Why are we doing burger trailers? Why are we doing nonsensical Fair Game trailers? That I don't understand, but I digress. That'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.